Road to the Winner's Circle is brought to you by Bear Nose Pizza. Yeah, it's that good.
We're back with more Road to the Winner's Circle. I'm Kimberly Greenwell. I'm here with Mike Gandolfo and Brian Dugan, and we're counting it down to Derby 143, and we're giving you all the scoop on the horses. Speaking of, we had an opportunity to speak with Todd Pletcher about his Derby horses, and you'll see the interview right now.
So you had mentioned that Always Dreaming was being a little obnoxious on the track and aggressive. Why do the draw reins calm a horse down?
Well, it's not so much that the draw reins calm one down. It just gives the rider a little more leverage and a little more control. It prevents the horse from being able to elevate his head. It kind of works in a way that the horse pulls against himself more so than against the rider. And the thing that he was doing prior to putting the draw reins on was he would elevate his head and give the rider less control. So by doing that, we kind of were able to bring his head down and that way give the exercise rider a little more leverage.
Does it give him more focus as well when he does that?
It's not so much focus. I mean, he's focused. He's too focused. He's wanting to do more than we want him to do. So the main thing was just to get him more under the exercise rider's control and able to control the pace of his gallop.
And did you have to train Patch a little differently because of his vision loss?
The amazing thing about Patch is that after the loss of his left eye, he's absolutely been totally professional. I mean, we've had just a handful of horses with one eye through my training career, and most of those horses lost their eye as a very young horse. And I think as a rule, those type of horses are accustomed to it. They never really have known life or training with two eyes. So my biggest concern with Patch when he lost his left eye is he was already well into his training. He'd already breezed a half mile, and I was concerned that it would take him a little while to adapt and adjust, but he really hasn't. It's been a remarkable adjustment. You literally would not know that he doesn't have two eyes based on his behavior around the barn, his behavior on the track, the way he needs to be ridden. He's really just a normal horse.
Why do you think he's so special in that regard?
I think he's just got a terrific mindset. It takes a great mind and disposition to adjust to something like that. It just seems like nothing phases him.
That interview with Todd Pletcher was very informative about his horses, and we want to thank the Todd Pletcher Barn for giving us time this week and to share his thoughts on his horses. What did you guys think about the draw reins on Always Dreaming?
Well, before we get into that, I want to just let everyone know that the governor of Kentucky had to wait for us to get done with our interview before he could get to Todd Pletcher, so we took priority over the governor.
Yeah, we're more important.
That's right.
Kimberly brings up a good point. The draw reins that he's put on Always Dreaming really indicates the horse is a little over anxious and trying to get a little more out of his works than I think Todd wants him. So he's went to an old training tool with the draw reins, and it shows you Always Dreaming is very anxious to run, and Todd didn't want to have him run his race before the Derby.
Well, if you believe in the omens of the Derby magic, Always Dreaming earlier this week switched exercise riders, which his mentor, Dwayne Lucas, who Todd will tie this year with his 3 Derby mounts, will tie as the all-time trainers with the most mounts. And in 1988, Dwayne Lucas changed exercise riders on Winning Colors and put a young Dallas Stewart on the mount.
Rest is history there. Dallas went on to be a great and is a great trainer.
So the other horse that he has, which is the human interest of this Derby, which is Patch, that is the one-eyed horse. He got a little unlucky with his post position spot of number 20. What do you guys think about that post position?
I don't know if he got unlucky, and I'll tell you why. The eye that's missing will be the one that's looking at all the other horses. All he'll see is people. So it almost might be like natural blinders or blinkers on, and he might just go. And so it might be the best thing for him. I think if it was the opposite, and he was on the one hole, and all he saw was a ton of horses.
No, you're right. He could have really been in trouble.
Him. So
I agree.
I think he actually maybe got a little fortunate. Now, we've only had one winner of that 20 hole, and I don't know if Patch was ever really a serious contender in this race, but for Patch, it's probably going to work out pretty good being the 20 hole.
Very ambitious for Patch to get in on the money there. I'm looking elsewhere.
And there's one horse that Todd has that we have not talked about yet, which is Taprit.
So Taprit is a horse Brian and I both liked out of the Tampa Bay Derby, and usually horses that run well in Tampa Bay will do well at Churchill Downs.
we're all still puzzled with what happened in the bluegrass. You know, not only did McCracken throw a bad one in the bluegrass, but Tappert really thought through one. A lot of us actually thought maybe he got hurt, but he came out fine. We've seen him on the track. He looks good, but I still got a tough time with wondering what happened to Tappert in the Bluegrass Stakes.
Hey, but it's going to be a long price, and if you're a show or place better, Tappert might be worth putting a couple of bucks on there, and you might get a really good return.
If he would have showed better in the Bluegrass, he could have been the favorite in this. I mean, he came out of the Tampa Bay Derby. That was as impressive a Tampa Bay Derby as I've seen in years. So just like a lot of horses in this race, you know, there's a lot of them that had one bad race.
That's right.
Well, and Todd was saying when we were asking him, we talked about the fact that he's a closer horse.
Yes.
And so what kind of adjustments are you going to make sure that this doesn't happen on Saturday? And so they are making the adjustments. He also mentioned that he did not get the start that he wanted in the Bluegrass. So that could have been a factor in his poor run as well.
I don't know what to make of that Bluegrass Stakes at all, Brian. I mean, it was just very bizarre all the way around. The whole time we thought it was going to be the best prep race of them all, and we had this very weird situation where IRAP was entered into the race mainly just to get points because he did not get the points he won in the Sunland Derby, goes off 31-1 against just an outstanding field, and then pulls off the biggest upset of the prep season.
Oh, no question about it. Practical Joke, a horse I like, a dual qualifier, got to the top of the stretch and had every right to go past IRAP, but couldn't get by him. So as we've talked about on our podcast, the Sunland Derby has really turned into hence won that race. But there's been a lot of good horses that have come out of that race, and that could be a real factor in this year's Derby.
If we do have podcast listeners, they heard me dog that race.
Yes.
And so, it's always good to listen to the show and then watch me eat crow later on. And right now we're doing it on television. So I want to remind the viewers that you can catch us. You can subscribe to Road to the Winner's Circle on iTunes, or if you're not an Apple product user, you can always go to livesportscaster.com to get the latest show of Road to the Winner's Circle. And through the season, we are going to actually be on 1450 WXVW and 96.1 The Big X on Thursdays from 6 to 7, taking live calls.
Dugan Ryan's given us a spot there, and we're very appreciative of that, and it's been a lot of fun.
It has been. And one horse that we'll talk about more when we come back from the break is Fast and Accurate, who was trained by Mike Maker, a local guy. We got a chance to interview him, and it was interesting to see how he does because it's his first time on dirt.
There you go. Yeah, Fast and Accurate is an accurate statement because I think he is going to be fast, a lot of early speed, and we'll get into that on the other side of the break.
All right, we'll be back with more Road to the Winner's Circle in just a moment.
Road to the Winner's Circle is brought to you by Bear Nose Pizza. Yeah, it's that good.
Yeah, it's that good. Bear Nose Pizza. Good taste, happy face, your place, my place. What's gonna make you happy? It's the smile I see on your face. It's that good. Yes, it is, and we deliver it. Oh, oh, oh. Taste is fun. Yes, it is. We guarantee it. Yeah, it's that good. Bear Nose Pizza. Yeah, it's that good.
Being charged with a crime is serious business and requires sound legal advice. Whether you live in Kentucky or Indiana, call my office by dialing 84-GET-LEMMY and let me help.
Call 84-GET-LEMMY